So welcome to episode 3 of the Flowise tutorials. Today we're going to make it a bit more complex and I think very interesting because we're going to use multiple agents and we're actually going to use a routing in those agents. Um, there are many different use cases where you want to have more complexity than you can just capture in a single agent. Some of the downsides of using a single agent is it can only handle so much context. So the more information you give it, the easier it starts to hallucinate or forgets about certain data. So having multiple agents prevents that. But also if you have multiple tools, like in Workday, where you maybe want to call some absence functionality and another time you want to set goals, the more tools you add to a single agent, the more risk you run of it using the wrong tool. So the solution is actually using multiple agents that only have selected access to limited context or limited amount of tools. And today we're going to see that in practice. It will get a bit more complex than the previous times, but bear with us, and I think at the end you will understand a lot more about the possibilities here. So we will remove these connections for a second, and we will start with creating a new agent. And this new agent will be our orchestrator. So we will call it the onboarding orchestrator. And of course, it needs to have a language model. So let's give it the OpenAI. Don't forget to set your API key. And this orchestrator will actually determine which next agent will be used. So I'm going to grab my prompts. Give me 1 second. And we're going to add a message. Again, you can go much more granular in terms of the amount of messages and the hierarchy you want to do here. But for now, we'll keep it a little bit simple. And I'm going to use one prompt for the onboarding orchestrator. So this onboarding orchestrator is going to use a 4-step sequence. In this case, I actually say it needs to use a fixed order, but that is no requirement. I just want to do it for demo's sake. So here I actually specify, okay, first do this agent, then this agent. But the cool thing is you can actually have the orchestrator determine which agent is needed. And maybe it only needs one agent or two agents. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of making it both efficient, but also giving it access to a number of different agents. So you see, we will build a new hire agent, a L&D agent, an additional agent, info agent, and then I explain what each agent can do. So the L&D agent can use get courses to propose relevant learning materials. And then in the end, we have an onboarding plan creator, and that is sort of the end node. So a lot of detail in here, but you can make it as simple and complex as you want to. But this is not enough. We need to go a little bit deeper, and that is actually what we're going to do here. We are going to return the response as JSON structured output. So JSON is a way to structure data, and we're going to determine a key, which is next. So who is the next agent? And we're going to give it a number of options. So I will just copy and paste the options here. You don't need to have the exact names here, but it makes it easier and reduces the risk of it using the wrong values. So here I give it one option is the new hire agent. A second option is the L&D agent. Oh, here we go. And then we have the additional info agent. And then lastly, we have the onboarding plan creator as an option. So basically, we give this agent the possibility to only give as output these 4 values. Who is the next agent? And we describe actually what this output is. Then we're going to store this as a state variable. So this is one of the great things that Flowise offers. It has state variables. So here I can say, okay, we have a state which we call next. It doesn't have a value at the start. Um, and now this onboarding orchestrator can actually update that state. So let me save it. Why is this not showing? Oh yeah, here we go. Who is the next agent? Here we go. I forgot to put the link between those two. So now this JSON structured output will be stored in a flow state, and that flow state can be used across all the different nodes that we are building. So this is very powerful. You can use it in many other ways as well. So basically, if we now go to the next node, we have this next agent available, and we are going to use a condition to then route it to the right agent. So I'm going to go to this condition, and we have a string, and then the value of with these curly brackets you can use variables, and then we are going to ask the flow state next, which you can now find here. And if it's equal to, and now I'm just going to copy and paste just to make sure that we do things in the right manner. If it's equal to new hire agent, then that is the 01, it needs to route to this agent. And then we're going to create a new agent. And let's go here. And this will be our L&D agent. So I'm just going to copy the name again, L&D agent. And then we will create the same condition. So we will say, okay, next, if next is equal to L&D agent. And you see we have another exit point here. And then I go here to this agent, and let's, for consistency, use the same name here. We will add the OpenAI key. And then we will copy in the prompt. So I already pre-created the prompts just to make it a little bit easier for the demos. You can also grab the templates in our playbook. So that's always an easy way if you don't want to type your own prompts. It is very interesting to think about your own prompts. So in this case, we ask what are the best learning courses. You have access to a tool, Get Courses, which we will still need to add. And then basically we ask it, okay, what are the best courses based on the job description, and what are the key skills, all those kind of things. And then we sort of plot it over a period of weeks. And that is basically the output. Then we need to add a tool. We will use a custom tool, which we of course created. And this custom tool is a tool called Get Courses, which is basically a report with all the potential courses we have in the GMS tenant. So with that, this is all okay. But then very important to realize is Flowise always runs from left to right, meaning that if I go from start to the onboarding orchestrator, and then it routes me to the new hire agent, this is now an endpoint. Well, we don't want this to be an endpoint. In fact, we want it to go back to the onboarding orchestrator once it retrieves the info from the new hire agent, so it knows who is the new hire. It needs to go to this one, and then it needs to go to the L&D agent. And for that, we will use something that is called a loop. So the loop is very straightforward. So I can link it here, and I can say, okay, where does it need to loop back to? In this case, it needs to go back to the onboarding orchestrator. We have a max loop count, which basically means if you get stuck in a loop, after 5 loops, it will exit. So we will call this loop back to orchestrator. And we will do the same for the L&D agent. So we go here, we get the loop, we link it to the L&D agent, and we say loop back to orchestrator. And we click this one. So, and then we had one more agent or two more agents to add, additional info agent. And for those who are paying attention, you could actually just make this a sequential order, right? Because I'm forcing the onboarding orchestrator to go through all three of them in a sequence order. The reason why I'm doing it now as routing is because this is a very important concept. So I just want to show you the possibilities. And of course, you can, let me first add a condition. Of course, you could do it in other ways as well. So next, and then we want to have the additional info agent. And we give it, as always, a large language model. And then I give it a message. Basically, this additional info agent can just ask any remaining questions to the manager to get additional info. So nothing too special. This is all okay. So I will link it here. And then we will again add the loop back to the onboarding orchestrator. To onboarding orchestrator. I just like to give descriptive titles so that I also can keep track of everything. And then we have one more agent to add, which is the onboarding plan creator. We will delete this one and we'll just create a new one from scratch. So this is a large language model. In fact, this could also be a large language model because it's not using any tools. Of course, you can use the agent, doesn't hurt, but onboarding plan creator. But actually, if you want to keep it clean, that can also just be a large language model instead of a agent. Next, and then we have the onboarding plan creator. We already linked it, and you also have an else function. So if none of these conditions are true, it can use this one as an exit. This is the final node. So behind this, we will not put a loop because this is the end point. So let's finish this one up with a prompt and of course a large language model. And then let's, again, you can go much more granular with your prompting details and the different levels, but for now we will keep it simple. Here you actually specify what input you receive, because very important is that we enable memory. If we enable memory, then all the previous nodes will be able to read what happened before. There are downsides to that, of course, because your context window is growing, so you are spending more and more tokens. So in reality, when you start designing something for production, you want to be much more critical about where you enable memory and where you don't. But for now, for simplicity's sake, we enable memory everywhere. If you are building things for yourself, you're not spending that much tokens. But of course, you need to be critical of this once you start doing your final test. Okay, let me save it. Let me start with a fresh chat and then let's see how it went. Let me clear the chat. Okay, help me create an onboarding plan. Let's see how it goes. So you are now seeing that the onboarding orchestrator routed this to the new hire agent, and you are seeing the new hire tools is getting called and is now doing the call to Workday to see what new hires are coming there. And you saw very quickly it went through the loop back to the onboarding orchestrator, who sent it down to the L&D agent. And the L&D agent is now reviewing what kind of courses might be relevant. And so, of course, also in terms of optimizing for performance, you also want to think about how many agents it's going to pass through, how many API calls it's going to make. People are used to getting instant feedback. So that's also something once you start designing your agents later on to think about. And do people actually need an instant response? Because then you might want to change your design. It's now actually taking quite a bit longer to review. And you saw it went to the L&D agent, and now it's going to the additional info agent. Apparently, it concluded it didn't need any additional info. And now the onboarding orchestrator is sending it to the onboarding plan creator, which is the final step. And here we see the final result, which is very detailed. But before we go in there, it's interesting to see the process flow. So here you can see exactly what happened. And you see the system message that came out. And then we said, help me create an onboarding plan. And then here it's sends back to JSON. Okay, the next person should be the new hire agent. And you see it's updating that state flow to new hire. And that's very important once you start building more complex scenarios. And so here you actually see the condition flow, how that is routing it to the next one and so sending it there. So, and if you go to the second onboarding orchestrator, you see it's actually routing it to the L&D agent. So that's very useful when you start debugging to look into the process flow to find the details. Yeah, I think the output is really impressive, right? So if you look at this, a very clear plan for Robert Schmidt, who is a sales support specialist. You have your day one plan, you have your week one plan with who to meet. Then you also see your focus for the week 2 and 4. So you have the product knowledge, customer interaction, sales process, planning certain meetings. You have a stakeholder map. And if we go here, we also see the learning path, right? These are all taken from GMS. Of course, the content is from GMS, right? So introduction to workday learning probably wouldn't be in there normally. GMS product overview, of course, would be good to know for someone who's going to work in sales. But yeah, all of this, of course, becomes better and better the more context you add to it. So I would really recommend take the time to write those prompts, think about your internal process. In the next episodes, we'll go a few levels deeper by adding policy documents and other kind of materials to generate even more context. But for now, think about your own use cases, think how that information should flow, and then in the next episode, we'll do some more exciting things. Thanks for joining.